Yo, how's it going, everybody? So we have an article from Gfinity Sports, and it talks about Persona and its definitive editions. So let's jump right in and see what this article is about. It's about time Sega realizes that re-releasing their acclaimed titles in a definitive edition isn't doing wonders for them. In a recently published summary by Sega's second quarter financial briefing, they mentioned that despite record-breaking sales from franchises like Persona and Shin Megami Tensei, they still fell short of expectations. The company speculated that its tactic of re-releasing definitive editions could be the reason why sales aren't up to par. This is likely caused by players being hesitant to buy the vanilla versions, as they only need to wait a year or two for the best edition. And you know what? That's actually pretty interesting thing to say, because I've always wondered why they would come out with like a better edition of a game and think oh, people aren't gonna wait, or people are gonna figure out that we like doing this. We like coming out with the definitive edition of a game. It was one thing when Kingdom Hearts did it. Kingdom Hearts also did something like this, where they came out with their final mix versions. But for the longest time, the final mix versions were always available in Japan and not in the US. And later on, the final mix versions became available in the US. So I think now people also kind of expect Kingdom Hearts to come out with a definitive edition or a final mix edition, which for I think Kingdom Hearts 3 they didn't do that. They came out with a DLC instead, which I thought was pretty cool. I enjoyed playing the Remind DLC instead of them coming out with a whole other game saying hey, you want to play some more of the story, you have to play this, get this new game. Because in the older Kingdom Hearts games, that's kind of what they did. They would have parts of the story in the final mixes that weren't available in the vanilla versions in the US. And I remember watching clips of it on YouTube and going holy shit, how come we didn't have this? I remember one of the big things was the Roxas fight with Sora. That was in the final mix version. I remember playing through Kingdom Hearts 2 and I was I don't remember this fight ever happening. And well, yeah, it's because, it didn't happen in the vanilla version in the US. So, yeah, I think that Sega coming up with these definitive editions, people are catching on and they're going to be hey, I'm not going to buy another Shin Megami Tensei or another Persona game if I know that the definitive edition of that game is right around the corner. Notable example from Sega's tactics were of course the Persona series. It's been widely known by the community that Persona titles aren't just stuck to their vanilla formats. Persona 5 came out in 2016, but an enhanced edition called Persona 5 Royale came out 4 years later, adding some of the game's best moments, including additional cutscenes, scenarios, and an epilogue that adds over 30 hours of content. Now, it seems like Sega is realizing that this problem, which is honestly a good thing for consumers including me. I've always felt that there's simply no point playing the vanilla version of an ATLUS game when an even better version comes out just a few years later. But as a huge fan of the Persona series, I always play the original version first to save me from the risk of spoilers in its base story. But as time went on, more and more ATLUS titles have embraced this re-release strategy, notably the new Shin Megami Tensei 5 entry, and having to replay the game sours the overall experience for me. Yeah, having to replay the game is kind of annoying because you're man, I already put over, I don't know, 40 hours, maybe over 60 hours in this game, collecting, doing all this, doing all that, and then you realize that, oh hey, there's more story in the definitive edition, only for you to download or buy the definitive edition, go shit, now I have to go through the story all over again. Yeah, sure, you're not collecting personas or doing any of the side quests, but that's still a good chunky 30-40 hours of gameplay of cutscenes and stuff you have to go through. Even if you skip stuff, it's still a long time, and as adults, it's hard to have that time to play, especially when you have other obligations, jobs, family, and things of that nature. So I can see the frustration in the person who wrote this article. I remember having to go through all the tedious dungeon crawling moments in Persona 5 Royale. I've already been through these levels in the vanilla version and have to run through 80 hours of its main story again just to play an additional 30-hour expansion was a cheap maneuver. The only things that make it interesting are scenarios involving Kasumi's character, but even that is a classic case of drip-fed content to maximize their impact when the royal chapter finally happens. The Persona remakes, on the other hand, are a different story altogether. They're essentially the real definitive way to play the game rather than mere re-releases. Persona 3 Reloaded was a success because it rebuilt everything from the ground up, with the story DLC as an extra purchase rather than buying it again. The upcoming Persona 4 remake will likely follow the same suit, but it would depend if ATLUS wants to fit the golden storyline to the base game or not. Rumors about a Metaphor ReFantazio re-release are still circulating, but there hasn't been any concrete proof of its existence besides the occasional hearsay. I'm actually worried if it gets to be a real thing, as there are obviously cut content near the game's third act. If that's the case, Metaphor ReFantazio is going to end up like another royal situation. I'm optimistic, so I'm sure Sega came to a harsh realization that the business model no longer works. This is making me excited for the imminent Persona 6, and we would likely get a full game with increased budget just to avoid the dreaded re-releases. Yeah, that's pretty interesting, because like, I'm surprised Sega didn't pick that up after Persona 4 Royal Edition. I remember buying the Persona 4 vanilla game, and then literally the next year the Royal Edition came out, because I bought the game very late. And I was like, what the hell? Like, how is there another edition? Like, well, I have to go through another story? I never even played the Royal Edition because I was like, I'm not trying to go through the story all over again just so I can play a little bit of, like, this new character. I mean, 30 hours isn't a little bit, but still, I didn't have that time to spare. Yeah, I hope they don't do that with ReFantazio because I haven't played it yet. Yeah, I haven't played it yet, but also it's like a very flawed business model. Once your client, once the player figures out, hey, I know this company is going to come out with like a definitive edition of this game, I might as well just wait till the definitive edition. Of course people are gonna, realize what's going on and just buy the definitive edition. But this is where Sega can make it right. They can come out with the whole game, and I would even be okay with them just doing like a DLC to add more story, or a DLC to add like a little bit more content. And what I mean by DLC is not like the Royal Edition DLC. No, I mean like just have it so that you can play a story DLC or something. Have it so that if there's additional things that your characters can do, or if you're adding additional content, just make it available to the person that's already finished the game. Or you can make it available to the game, and if the person wants to do a new game plus, or if the person hasn't even played the game yet, they can buy the DLC and just complete the game with the extra content. So I think having options is great, but definitely like releasing the vanilla version and then people buying it and then them coming out with a definitive version or a version with more story or more content, I just think it's a little scummy. As much as I love Sega, as much as I love their content, Sonic, Persona, whatever, Yakuza, I think it is a little scummy. Yeah, and hopefully at the end of the day, Persona 6, when it comes out, the vanilla edition is the definitive edition. They won't come out with another one. They won't come out with Persona 6R or whatever, and we won't have to re-buy the game again. But if they do come out with something, if they do want to say like, hey, we want to add more story, we want to add more content, then please throw in a story DLC, let me pick up where I left off, or hey, even, make it so that I can play the story DLC from day one or something. I just don't see the point in trying to hustle people out of money, and I don't mean that in like a negative way. I know we're in everyone is trying to make their money and get their bag, but I just think when your player base is so dedicated and so devoted, you kind of want to cut them a break. I want to know what you guys think. Let me know down in the comments below. Do you think no, definitive editions are a way to experience the game even further, and it shows the love for the game? Or do you think no, definitive editions are just a cash grab and it's just a way for companies to make some money and not really come out with the whole game all at once. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will catch you guys later. Peace out.